well here, who some of you might not be able or might not know, but he is a seasoned marketing professional. He's going to be talking to us today about how to build your brand, how to be responsible marketer, and how to use the latest and greatest tools today. So I'm really excited about the conversation, touch some more on the marketing things and get into some specifics. But with that, I'll turn it over to Bill here. So Bill, if you want to share your screen, go for it. But I'm going to start the recording, and we're off.
Recording in progress.
And again, sorry guys for the little bit of delay at the beginning. Apologies on that. But Bill, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And hello, everybody. Terrific to see so many people on board. I'm going to preface this by saying that there's very little in the world that bores me more than hearing myself talk. So what I would like to do is have my slides be kind of an introduction to the next topic for us to discuss, right? So we're going to have a conversation, not a presentation. I am not a public speaker. I am a conversationalist. All right. So just to give you a very quick overview, I've been in traditional marketing for decades, since the 80s, early 80s. So way back when my first Macintosh had a 250 meg hard drive, which is hard to even believe now since we have documents that are that big. And then the first time I connected to the internet was an ISD line between Salt Lake City and Union City, California, just so I could transfer files. And I thought it was the dawn of a whole new age. So very exciting. Since then, I've been working with companies both throughout the United States and around the world in a wide variety of disciplines, software, retail, startups, long-term luxury clients, hospitality, basically anything that you think of. We worked with them, and it's been a real terrific ride. So what I'm going to show you in this presentation is just kind of an overview. For some of you, it might be really fundamental. Hopefully, it'll spur some questions and some conversation as we go. But we're going to kind of start with 101 and get all the way to 101B over the next half an hour or 40 minutes or so. All right. So I'm going to share my screen with all that, and we will get going. Here we are. Let me know if you're seeing my presentation.
That's great.
Good. All right. Beautiful. So what we're going to be talking about here, very simply, like Nick said, is building and marketing your brand effectively. It's going to be all about kind of getting the right eyeballs to you with and without cash. We all have varying degrees of cash. That's the shortcut. It's kind of the sugar rush of marketing, if you will. You basically put some money into it, and you're guaranteed to get traffic if you do it right. If it's the right traffic, is a different story, but we'll get to that also. All right. So to start with, I'm sorry, let me see. I just need to adjust my view here a little bit. So at the very outset, right, as you're creating your business, you really have to keep in mind the fact that you're also starting a marketing department. It's not just a business. If you don't do the marketing piece of it, you're going to have to go out and get a real job like the rest of us, right? So you got to keep that in mind, right? Fundamentally, if you build it, they will come. Not true. If you build it, it's going to sit there and wither unless you start doing some activity to drive that traffic to you. So the very first thing that we have to do when we sit down is figure out, who are we, right? So before choosing your tools, platforms, channels, everything else, you have to decide who you are. In today's world, especially online, because everything is trackable, you can get all kinds of data and insight into activity. People often confuse the channels and the tools as for marketing itself, right? And what I mean by that is people will look at a Google Analytica report and say, my email drove X number of people to my site. Social media is driving this many people. Pay-per-clicks doing this. And in truth, those are just channels, right? They're just reflective of what you're doing with your marketing. And they should provide insight into how various channels are performing, but the channel is not by itself a marketing tech, right? It is just how you're getting your word out there. So what are the components of that, right? Again, and it's interesting, especially in the world of startups, and some of you I know have been around for a long time, so you're not really a startup, but there is still opportunity. In fact, in some cases, more opportunity for a company who's been around a while to reflect on what they're doing and how they're presenting themselves, and to say, is this what we want to reflect in the marketplace, right? So when you're kind of sitting down to set that part of it up, the more fully you flesh out all of your brand assets, including every component of your identity, the easier the task of creating content, advertising, and marketing channel activity becomes, because you're not sitting down every time and making it up as you go, right? If you understand your own persona, the persona of your company, then you can kind of sanity check everything that you're doing against that persona. You can say, is this the voice? Is this the look? Is this the feel? Is this the experience that my company wants to present to my customers, my target market, my current customers, and my future prospect customers, right? Does that make sense? Any questions from anybody? No? Good. We're not, I should caveat this also and say, I don't want to wait for the end for questions. If you have them as we're going through all this stuff, just bubble them up and we'll bang them out, all right? The other thing about the voice is that one of the beauties of the internet, in traditional marketing, you basically had one identity, right? And so everything would reflect against that one identity. You'd have it on print, you'd have it on TV, you'd have it on radio. But now, because we can go through so many different channels online and you can use so many different outlets and platforms, you can actually create multiple voices. So if you're going after, if your business is going after both B2B and B2C, you can speak to those different audiences in different ways. Maybe it's different visuals, maybe it's a different tone of voice, right? So it's a little bit more casual for your B2C, it's a little bit more formal and straightforward for B2B. And then there's something called UTM tagging, which you can do on everything that you put out. That is just a tagging protocol that tracks everything through Google Analytics, so that then you can even see the impact of your different voices on your different platforms as people come to your website and navigate around it. Anything? Questions? Nice and simple. On we go. So once we have our voice, we got to think about, okay, let's build our website, right? So I don't think anybody's ever said, I don't think there's going to be anybody looking for more info online, right? As soon as they find out about you, in whatever manner they find out about you, they're going to jump online and find out more. So again, very 101, but in some cases, I know some of you specifically don't have, don't actually have a website yet, a flagship property for people to go to, right? So the very first thing you got to do is claim a spot online. Where are they going to go? Do you build a website? Is it just a microsite that leads to an app download? Will it be social profiles, just a YouTube channel? The number of options you have out there are enormous. And then even that, after you figure out what platform, then you got to figure out what software, right? WordPress right now powers about 43% of the world's websites, so it's a terrific option. But there's also simpler DIY services like Wix and Squarespace, Shopify, things like that. So I think some of the things that you would want to keep in mind when you're choosing your platform and choosing your software are things like the long-term vision for content and functionality. Is it going to be a lead generation tool? Is it going to be simply to direct people to an app store to install? Will there be advanced functionality for customers? You know, based on all those variables, that's going to kind of drive your decision about your platform and your software. And the other thing I would say is that it's very important to make sure that you're building for phase 2 and not just for phase 1. What happens very often is people will build something, get it up because they're excited, they want to start the business, and then a year from now, things have grown so much that they have to not only handle the growing business, but they have to go back and rebuild their website or their web property to handle the new traffic, handle the new business, the business needs. So I think this is a very critical decision point right out of the gate is how are you going to build your property that is going to be with you as you grow. Chugging along, there are 3 sources of online traffic, right? There's organic, paid, and earned. There's also offline that drives online, but when we're looking at just online activities and the stuff that we're going to cover today, we'll just look at these 3 kind of as a starting point. Organic is, for most startups anyway, organic is, it's interesting because it is very often overlooked. Oftentimes, the team that is building the startup product is so focused on the product they're building and the service and the concept that kind of the organic footprint of their flagship web property doesn't get the attention that it I would say deserves, because when it's done properly, that becomes an evergreen source of qualified traffic to your business. And what I mean by that is that if you're building it with the right keywords, the right headlines, the right content, you're going to drive the right people to your site. And that can be either users, right? Potential users. It could be investors for acquisition. If you build your website big enough and robust enough, that can be both, right? You're speaking to all your different audiences. The organic is a complex game in the sense that it's long-term and it's ever-changing, and there's over 200 factors that go into a ranking. But shortly, I'm going to start talking a little bit about just the basics for you guys to worry about. You can have a technical team that worries about the technical end of it, but there's front-end things that you can do and behaviors that you can encourage within your company that will help your organic footprint grow. Secondarily is paid channel activity is anything that you fund. That's search engine marketing, video campaigns, paid social. The organic reach of most social platforms is next to nothing. I think on Facebook nowadays, it might be around 3.5 to 5%. So if you put something up there, you have 100 followers, 4 of them are going to see it without you funding that to expand it a little bit. There is email marketing that you can do. There's LinkedIn outreach, sponsorships, things like podcasts, stuff like that, right? And then the last channel is your earned traffic. And that is anything that reflects people valuing your site or your content, right? So that's, when you're surfing around the internet, a lot of websites will have a little share this button, so you can share it on your Facebook or LinkedIn page, that kind of stuff. It's anything that says to Google that people value this enough to share it with their connections. So that's earned. That's as we call it, earned ripple presence, because it's not for most businesses, especially B2B. It's not a promotional channel. It is the channel that extends your vision, and we go back again to who you are and how you position yourself. Social media and your earned channel is going to be where a lot of that goes out into the world. All right. Any questions? I know I covered a lot of ground there, but any questions on any of that? Nothing. Good. All right then. On we go. So when you get to your website, right, somebody gets to it, you don't want somebody going, gee, I wonder what they sell, right? No one ever said that ever. What you want to do is say, I get it. And this is where where website development is a blend of art and science. Um, so you have your personality, you have your positioning statements, you have all of the selling verbiage that you want to create that persona of your company. It doesn't necessarily align uh, with with solid SEO best practices, right? Um, so I actually talked to a couple of you folks over the course of last week a little bit about some of these things. Uh, but basically every word, image, video, and document that you put onto your property contributes to your organic footprint, and can drive the proper web traffic to your site, right? So from a very basic level, you want to pay attention to things like your page title, your H1, H2, H3. So those are basically the headline tags on your pages. You want to pay attention to your meta descriptions. Meta description in a search world is the little couple of lines of information that are below a link on a Google search that kind of sells that page and tells you what that page is about. So you want to pay attention to those. It's like a little free ad, right? The word count on a page, generally speaking, you want to have it over 600 words on a page in order for it to be considered valuable. Over 2,500 words, they consider that long form content online. And there's tremendous value in that from a search standpoint. But again, you're always balancing your search requirements with your user experience. So don't just fill up a page with a ton of words because you think it's good. You want to make sure that what you're presenting first is for your reader, for your visitor, and secondarily, it should be extending that footprint for you. There are some technical considerations about your organic footprint, like page speed, time on site, internal linking. But again, that's stuff for your webmaster and your marketing team to worry about. While they're doing things, it's just, you should be aware of the fact that there are a lot of technical factors. But I'm kind of not a proponent of even talking about those to most people, because for you guys, who cares, right? What we really care about are driving the behaviors that contribute long-term to a healthy and growing footprint. So once you kind of have the foundation of everything built, you want to grow it, right? And say 10 years ago, you could game it. You could have your webmaster stuff the back end of your site full of keywords and stuff. So you could basically cheat the system. It didn't really matter what you said to your visitor. You could cheat it on the back end. Now, what I like to tell people is to treat your property just like a brick and mortar storefront. That way, if you treat it that way, it's gonna reflect the fact that it is a living, thriving piece of your business, right? It's not something you just put up there and forgot about. So just as you would kind of keep the outside of your store freshly painted, landscaped, signed, and cleaned up for curb appeal, you want to keep your homepage updated, informative, and inviting to your site users. And just similarly, as you would fill out your store shelves with whatever you want to sell and be known for selling, which is where kind of social sharing and that earn channel comes in, you want to build content on your site that presents your business clearly, so that your organic footprint will reflect what you actually do, right? And then bottom line is, the more quality content you create to support your business, the larger your inventory, if you will. And so, for example, you can picture a mom and pop appliance or electronic store, and their impact in the community, their presence in the community, versus a Best Buy, right? Best Buy just has more of everything. They're bigger, they're brighter, they've got more inventory. So the community is more aware of it. Similarly, the bigger and more robust and fuller your website is, in not just words, but again, pictures and stories and slideshows and videos, Google will see it like the equivalent of a Best Buy versus a little mom and pop. And finally, what we need to do once we kind of have this organic engine going, right? We need to leverage that. So generally speaking, organic traffic tends to be the highest converting channel for many businesses. So if you're looking for app installs, you're looking for lead generation, you're looking for purchases. Generally speaking, across most industries, the highest converting channel is that organic traffic. If you think about it, Google's business is built on providing searchers the best, so web searchers, right? So the user, the best search results for their query. So if your content accurately reflects your business and a web searcher gets to the information that they expect after they click on your link, Google's going to reward you for that, right? Because you're basically making a promise to the clicker that once they click that, they're going to get the information that they're after and it's valuable to them, right? So again, if we just kind of revisit our brick and mortar analogy, if your bookstore is full of a huge variety of titles and genres and lengths and topics, more people are going to find that bookstore and talk about it, and they'll spend more time wandering around. They'll tell their family and friends, and the same thing goes for your website. And the last thing I'm going to cover off on organic is that in the world of startups, there is a particular challenge that you should be aware of, and that is that there are no web searches, or maybe very few web searches for what you're building. There will guaranteed be no branded web searches, right? Nobody's looking for your brand because they don't know it exists. So what you have to do is look for similar terms that are being used, and then incorporate those into your site. So I'm going to, as an example, I was working with one startup that was creating some brilliant, absolutely brilliant AI-powered video analysis tech that created clickable hotspots basically on any video that was being played online, right? Now that technology at the time didn't exist anywhere, so the search volume for things like AI video overlays or AI-powered interactive video was next to nothing. So what we did was leverage similar terms like video advertising, interactive video, video shopping video technology, things like that. So as you're kind of building your organic footprint, tapping into similar or related existing terms is going to help you get some traffic out of the gate. That kind of covers off on organic. Before we move on, any questions from anybody? So I'm going to guess then that I'm just banging this out of the park. That's great.
Bill, maybe you already touched on this. Just a quick question would be, how does like backlinking and those types of things, or maybe we'll get to it in a little bit, help with organic, search in that type of situation?
Yep, fantastic question. So backlinking does help. The entire Google algorithm is based on something called the eigenvector centrality, right? So what that is, it basically means that a link from site B over to site A, right? Our site being site A, is a vote for the quality of site A. However, the size of that site that's linking to you, the size of site B, is really important. So you're better off getting one link from CNN.com than you are getting 1,000 links from a little local papers and stuff like that. So, and there are various philosophies about link building. You can do outreach for that, and the best way to do that is finding sites that are complementary or that might want to talk about your company, and reaching out to them, right? Over the course of time, it actually happens organically, right? Because as you share across your social media, as you put things on LinkedIn, on your Twitter page, and share those links, people grab them and it becomes kind of viral. It happens of its own accord. So you can put time into outreach in order to develop those backlinks. My personal feeling is that what you're better off doing is just doing the behaviors that you want to do anyway, if that makes sense, Nick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want to reach out when you want to get some press, you're going to reach out to local papers, you're going to reach out to local networks, you're going to reach out to bloggers, things like that are complementary. So I would do those behaviors, and then that backlinking is going to happen of its own accord.
And that'll just be, be a natural thing. Yeah. So I guess for these folks is thinking about, if I put myself in the team's shoes, everybody's working on such a good notable cause that, maybe there could be some press around, or there's already been press, and that'll kind of help juice that up a little bit on the organic side.
Exactly. That's exactly the way to do it. Because again, you could spend so much time on the back end kind of nuts and bolts of all this stuff. But what I'd far rather everybody did was focus on the behaviors that contribute to it, right?
Yeah.
So I would say backlinks are going to happen. There are SEO agencies that focus on that, right? So if you felt like I'm not getting enough after a year of existence, then I would go ahead and tap into it. But initially, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you're getting visibility, and that visibility is going to drive backlinks. So I would say, just as part of your outreach program, I would focus on that, and the backlinks will grow from it.
Awesome.
Makes
Thanks.
sense?
Yeah.
Good. So then with that, we'll kind of move on from organic, and we're going to get to paid. And this, I have endless amounts of money to spend. So many people I've talked to, they've said that to me. So many. I just keep spending, Bill. We can have an unlimited budget, right? That's actually not true at all. Your paid activity, especially at first, it's a fantastic way to supplement the developing organic footprint, and to reach specific audiences proactively, right? If you think about it, or your organic footprint is always going to drive traffic. You're not interrupting anybody. You're not reaching out to anybody. They are finding you, right? So kind of the ball is in your searcher's court to come across you. Paid advertising is a way for you to reach out to people who don't know you exist and say, hey, take a look at us, right? There are many different paid platforms. They all leverage a range of targeting tools, and they reach different audiences. And then again, here your persona development is critical to your efficient advertising spend. And then you'll be able to monitor all of this through Google Analytics. So that's what I mentioned real quick. Your persona development, in this case, what I'm talking about is the persona of your target audience, not the persona of your company. The two will work hand in hand, because the creative that you put out there, the content that you put out there, will be based on your company persona, but it's going to be built and targeted to speak to the persona of your target audience. You have B2B or B2C paid advertising, or you might have both, right? Depending on what you're building. There are many platforms. They all have slightly different targeting capabilities, but they also offer very similar interfaces for the most part, and similar basic functionalities, right? You're going to choose your geography, you're going to choose your profession that you're going after, the age, everything that your persona is going to dictate here. However, some tools like YouTube, for instance, allows you to target people based on a life event. So life event could be somebody's getting married, or they just got married, or somebody just started a company, or somebody is researching starting a company. So every platform has different granularity around how you can target from a paid perspective. And even that, you can say, I just want to target people who are on an iPhone on the Verizon network, right? So you can get very, very granular with it. You can also do a shotgun approach, but that would be a choice based on kind of your persona, or the fact that you don't know the persona yet. Then a more shotgun approach is a better way to go. I'm going to speak to that in a slide or two. So your B2B paid, generally speaking, I would say LinkedIn is your powerhouse for both paid and earned. Um, there are so many things that LinkedIn offers that I think people underutilize it. Um, and you can do a number of different paid activities there. They have display, they have video, they have carousels where you can put up a series of tiles that people can interact with. And they also they do messaging, so you can email people through there. They've got newsletters and article publication. So it itself is a wonderful platform to use, again, both on a paid and an earned basis. And then there's an increasing number of automation tools. At the end of this whole presentation, by the way, I have one slide that I have a couple of links to different tools that you can check out. But the automation tools that are available now, they really can explode what you're doing on LinkedIn. Very inexpensively. There's one tool that I use that it's like $39 a month, and it exponentially expands your reach. The other thing that's pretty cool about LinkedIn is using things like LinkedIn Live events. They're terrific ways to showcase a product or service. Also great ways to gather feedback from potential users. The other thing that I see a lot of is that a LinkedIn Live session will yield a lot of FAQ information from the questions that get posed while you're running the presentation. And then you can also repurpose those recordings on other social profiles or on the website. So fantastic platform for B2B paid. If we switch over to B2C, Google Properties, great place to start. There are others, right? So you could reach out to Microsoft, Yahoo. There's a ton of niche opportunities for paid. But if you're starting out and you got a limited budget, the Google Properties are probably the best place to start. You can also do things like Twitter, some more kind of social platform, paid social platform activity. As far as Google's concerned, they do offer many different options, right? You got search, display, YouTube, Gmail, and Discover. Discover is a little thing that just happens on a smartphone. You don't actually see Discover when you're on the desktop, but it is kind of little tiles that come up based on your search history, and they're usually very mobile optimized experiences. And then to kind of touch on kind of the shotgun approach, they have something called a Performance Max campaign, where they leverage their machine learning, and you basically upload a ton of assets. So it's like up to 15 photos, 5 videos, 10 headlines, right? Long headlines, short headlines, 90 character descriptions, and you basically upload all of these assets, and then you tell Google, I want you to target it across everything that you do. So that one campaign will be served to YouTube. It'll be served to in Gmail for people. It'll be in search across their display network, as well as the Discover. And what happens with this approach, especially when you're starting out and you don't know who your audience is, it's a great way to discover who your audience is. Because when you integrate this with Google Analytics, you're going to see, number one, which property you're getting most traction from, but also the most conversions, the most engagement on your site, all that kind of stuff. And I just want to touch a little bit deeper on YouTube. We're going to get in a little bit deeper into YouTube in a minute. But YouTube is actually the #2 search box in the world. That search box on the YouTube homepage. So, and they have so many different options for publishing now, and more interactivity coming out. It's going to be something that, even whether you use it for paid activity or for organic or earned activity, YouTube is a place to go. And I got some stats on that in a minute that we're going to get into, but it really is. Also, despite the prevalence of video in everybody's lives, it also continues to just explode online. So doing video, not being afraid of video, and doing as much as you can, take you a long way. Right? Any questions about paid? And I know this is very, very top line. Anytime I talk about this stuff, it feels like a rabbit hole to me, like I'm dancing around a rabbit hole, because there's so much that we could talk about and explore under each one of these topics. I just want to kind of give you a quick overview. But any questions?
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any and I'm sorry if you already covered this. I joined a little bit late.
No.
But is there a benchmark around how much you should spend on marketing or paid advertisement? Is there, is it like 15% of your budget or 3% of your budget?
Terrific question, and I would say that number one, it varies by industry, partly driven by math, right? But I would say anywhere from 5% to 10%. Once you get above 10%, generally speaking, you're probably doing something inefficiently, because it shouldn't gobble up too much of your revenue to put it back into advertising. And because you can target so well, once you kind of go through the learning process of knowing who your audience is, you can almost hit, I like to picture it as starting out with a wide approach, a big funnel, and getting people in. And then as you get more refined with it, you throw darts, right? So if your revenue is increasing exponentially along with your spend, then continue to increase it. I would keep it below a certain threshold, whatever you're comfortable with from a percentage standpoint. But the other way to do it is if you can narrow that target and tighten your budget once you know who you're specifically targeting. Does that make sense? Or
Yes, thank you.
Certainly. And did it answer your question?
It did. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And again, I would say, I have a couple of clients who spend about 7%, and I have others who spend 3%. And I think largely that's dependent on their ROI, the amount of profit that they get from each customer. So generally speaking, if you have a little tighter margin, you want a little bit less of your percentage. If you got a wider margin, then a little more robust spend is better.
Okay.
Anybody, anything else? All right, beautiful. So social media, just terrific, right? I use the term free here, but in fact, nothing is free. We know that, right? It's only free in the sense that you're not spending money necessarily on it, but you're spending resource. You're spending time, not just for the posting, but you're spending time developing your message, right? You're spending time shooting video. You're spending time creating the images and doing your wordsmithing and all that. So not free, but for the purposes of cash flow, it's free. Now there's ways of obviously boosting all that and spending additional money to expand the reach of it. But at its core, you can also just play the game of, I'm just going to leverage hashtags in Instagram and Twitter in order to increase my reach. I'm going to post with frequency. I'm going to do some things like that don't cost money. So it just has at a very high level, social media is a great channel to show your target audience who you are in addition to what you do. So this kind of goes back to that original persona, right? Where we're going to communicate who we are in addition to what we do. So often people just get hammered with, buy this, buy this, buy this. And what we really want to do is say, buy it. And here's who you want to buy it from, right? And why you want to buy it from me. It also goes a long ways towards opening channels, new communication channels, as say, and I won't pick on anyone in particular, but let's say that you're starting What should I pick here? Kevin, can I pick on you for just a moment? All right, good. So
which Kevin? There's two of us.
yeah, Kevin, sorry, Bergman, sorry. So I'm going to say we're starting we are starting a company that does ultrasound, right? And we want to make sure that that we're reaching out to people in a friendly manner. Well, maybe there's a competitor who does the same thing, but they do it very coldly. I know for a fact that you guys are very passionate about what you do. You do a lot of community outreach and work with communities. So reflecting that in your social media warms up who you are, right? So when somebody's looking at you versus somebody who does something maybe similar, they're going to pick you because they know who you are versus somebody else who they don't know, right? So you want to make sure that you're using social media to paint a broad picture. Paid activity is usually very pointed and response oriented. Social is a much wider net. You're going to share promotional things, but you're also going to share personality things. And I'm just going to, while we're staring at this screen, I'm going to run through some fascinating statistics with you. So the Facebook, if we start with them, their organic reach is about 5%. The ads on Facebook reach about 64% of all Americans over the age of 13. So they have a tremendous reach. And it's, and generally speaking, that 64% is very, very targeted. You can get so much disturbing amount of granular information about your demographics and your target. From a consumer standpoint, it's what makes us all a little bit nervous. From a marketer standpoint, it's a gold mine. So doing some ads on there is very, very cost effective. It's also fairly inexpensive compared to other channels. Facebook also, interestingly, still beats out TikTok for short form video, with about 61% of users using short form video. And then 69% of Americans over 18 are on Facebook, including 77% of people between 30 and 49. So, you know, it started out as a college thing, but basically everybody's parents and grandparents took it over. So it's a terrific audience for businesses in general. If we switch over to Instagram and think about that for a minute, about 30% of Instagram's audience is between 25 and 34. So it skews a little bit younger than Facebook does. And really it's, boy, Instagram for most of you guys is going to be, I would say, a tertiary outlet, not a primary or even secondary, because the audience, generally speaking, is less business focused and more, you know, personal and activity. Facebook is more about interest, and Instagram, or Facebook is more about what we do. Instagram is more about just kind of interest-based things. YouTube, if we take a look at that, YouTube is a powerhouse. As I mentioned earlier, 99% of YouTube users are actually also on other platforms. So if you were going to just pick one that you wanted to focus on, if you post on YouTube regularly, you're going to reach everybody, right? Because they're also on everything else. Whereas that same cross-pollination doesn't happen between other platforms and YouTube. So YouTube is just tremendous as far as reaching out to everyone. 92% of American users say they use it weekly, and 98% access it at least once a month. So you put something there, chances are you're going to get it seen. Even if you tag it poorly and you don't do good headlines and everything, it's going to get some views. We can talk a little bit more about specifically how to leverage tagging and writing your descriptions and all that to make sure it gets seen even more. But really, really tremendous opportunity. And then there's something called Shorts that that are basically little, I think they're up to 15 seconds on YouTube. They can only be done on a mobile phone, but they get about 15 billion views every day around the world. So they're very short, almost like a little TikTok thing, but delivered on YouTube. And then the last one I'm going to kind of spend a little bit of time on here is LinkedIn, because as I said earlier, LinkedIn for most of us in this group is our workforce. It skews slightly more male, right? So about 57% of LinkedIn users are men, or as we say now, they identify as men. So, but you need to kind of do your research on that, right? Because there are certain verticals, and your audience may be more female. And again, where that's going to come in is just as you design your imagery, as you kind of author your verbiage, you want to make sure you're talking to the right people. About 60% of LinkedIn users are between 25 and 34. So kind of right there in the wheelhouse of people who are energetic and looking for improvement in their careers or what their companies do and how they deliver things. A LinkedIn post with an image gets about twice as much engagement. And then if you do a big image in there, which is about 1,200 pixels, they actually get about 38% higher click-through than a text-based post. A couple other just interesting stats is that marketers, generally speaking, marketers see up to about a two-time conversion rate on LinkedIn versus other platforms. So from a B2B standpoint, terrific engagement, and people are more likely to actually take a step to connect with you. They have forms that you can put up, lead forms, things like that. It's a great platform for that kind of thing. And the other thing that you want to do is you have your personal page, but you want to set up a company page as well, and make sure that when you post on the company page, all of your employees, everybody associated with you, shares that in order to expand on that organic reach of things. Anybody want to hear anything about Twitter? Or to me, Twitter is from a business standpoint, it's almost a garbage heap of social media. Primarily, we use it for SEO purposes, because Google indexes a tweet about 10 seconds after it's put up there. So if you want to drive traffic to a new page on your website, very nice thing to do is write the article, post it, and then on Twitter, write a little headline that features your keyword and a link back to that. And it's a way for Google's going to index that tweet, and they immediately follow that link over to your site and index that page as well. So it's a nice little cheap way to get around the delay in Google spidering. Nick, question?
No, I was just gonna. Oh, sorry.
I just saw you come back on, so.
Let's try this now. Hopefully that's better. Sorry, I had the wrong mic on. No, I was just gonna say, I think I saw something in the chat come from Susan saying Twitter, I think agreeing with what you were saying, Twitter's great to engage media, but not so much for business. So I think she was just resonating with what you were saying there.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, actually, I just opened up the chat and see that. Yes, so Susan, that is absolutely correct, which is why in this instance, I really wouldn't waste too much time with it, other than as a kind of a facilitator of that organic indexing. So we're going to move along here to our next slide, and this, I hope you guys can see this, because it is so full of fantastic information. This is from the Pew Research Center, which pulls a lot of great data, and it's usually not biased at all. It's just real live data from users, right? And what is most interesting out of this is that if you look again at YouTube, at all the demographics of it, the reach of it, the income levels, in every respect, it really is, it's like the gold standard. So as probably you've been able to tell throughout this last 40 minutes or however long I've been blathering, I'm not comfortable on camera. I'm not comfortable hearing myself speak. I'm not, it's not a thing for me. However, because of the fact that the whole world gobbles up video, it's something that I think we all have to get more and more comfortable with. And again, that's all forms, right? That's short form, that's long form, that can be entertaining, it can be informational. There's so much here that I think it's something that I can't stress enough, that you need to get comfortable with it. What I tell people is to not worry about quality out of the gate, and just do it, right? Otherwise you're going to be frozen and not know what to do. There are tools where you can create a little teleprompter on your phone so that you can write out your script beforehand and record it that way. And the other thing about YouTube is that once it's there, you can then repurpose it by embedding it on your website. You can share it on all your other platforms. And again, it's going to live there in an environment that is searched and used every day. So you're going to continue down the road to get exposure and traffic from that. So dig into it. This just real quick, kind of touching on the difference between Instagram and Facebook. You know, Instagram started out, when I first started on Instagram, it was so cool because it was only for iPhone users, and there was like 100 of us in the world. It was so cool. We thought we were the coolest people ever. Now it's opened up. It's become a younger platform, not as young as things like TikTok, which are very young. And it also tends to really, most people are on the younger side, whereas Facebook, there's a much flatter curve to their user group. And the other thing I wanted to mention about Facebook is that an untapped feature for them, especially if you're trying to get marketing and word out without investing money in it, is to join groups and participate in groups. You can find groups about anything. I just, in fact, once again, Mena and Kevin, out of curiosity, I jumped on, did a search for ultrasound technicians, and it came up with 47 different groups of ultrasound technicians. So I was trying to think, what can I think of that's fairly obscure, fairly limited, and there they are. So you basically, anything that you're building, there's going to be Facebook groups out there that are interested in it, and all you got to do is join them and participate in the conversation, right? So terrific opportunity to get word out there. Nick?
Yep, just need to make sure I don't do the old loop cycle again. And just real quick on this one, thinking of different social platforms, what is your experience with Reddit? And Reddit forums is another kind of Facebook group, because I with like the, I feel like there's been kind of a groundswell of momentum in some groups, like Wall Street Bets, for example, or something like that. Totally different, but kind of this whole thing started on like, a Reddit forum, and then it kind of percolated out into the real world and all these other things. And now they're trying to, hedge against, different hedge funds and things like that, and short them and just mess with them. Essentially, long way. So, there's a lot of people that are acting or using Reddit, and has been around for a while. I didn't know if you had an experience with that kind of similar to Facebook group.
Absolutely, it's terrific, Nick. Thank you. So Reddit, it is a terrific source anywhere where you can get involved in conversations and answer questions. Quora is another terrific opportunity, right? Quora is just conversations that are happening out there. You jump on, you answer questions, because there's questions about everything that you can think of. Jump in there, answer. Once you build your profile, it actually becomes a nice source of traffic to your website as people click on your profile and find out where you work and what you're up to. So yes, Nick, mostly I was trying to, I'm just trying to cover up on
Sure.
highest volume stuff, right? But there are so many niche opportunities like that. You can just do a search for forums about your particular topic, and you're going to come up with, message boards out there.
Yeah.
And that's a terrific way. That's actually to your earlier question about backlinks. That's kind of a way that people sneak backlink building in there, is they'll jump into a forum and answer a question and put a link to their own site.
Interesting.
Right. So it's an interesting little technique. Those from Google's viewpoint, they tend to, they don't give it as much juice. It's called link juice, right? When somebody is linking from one site to another site, it's link juice. They give it slightly less link juice. They don't value it quite as much when it's in a forum like that, as if it was covered like in an article, right? However, you do get the benefit from it. So it's a nice little kind of, I would say it's not white hat, not black hat, but it's a gray hat technique of building your inbound link profile.
Cool. Sorry for the random questions, but
oh no. The questions, I'd rather answer a question than talk. So thank you. So that's Facebook groups, and then again, I'm just going to touch back. We've covered so much on YouTube. The only thing I wanted to mention here is that, and it's something that not a lot of people take advantage of, but you can actually use hashtags when you're creating your YouTube post. So there's a couple of things that are very important that time and time again I see people not doing. So if you upload a video, it's very important to title that video with keywords, right? So you're almost creating a little tiny landing page online when you put a video up. So you want to write the title of your video with keywords in mind, right? What do you want it to be found for? You want to fill out that description. In that description box on YouTube, 9 times out of 10, people leave it blank. But you can write long form entries there, and all of what you write in your description is indexable. So it's all ways for you to be found in a YouTube search, right? So completely fill that out. There are tags that you can apply. YouTube doesn't actually leverage that. They don't really put much weight in the tags. Those are kind of for you to organize things. However, you can include up to 60 hashtags in that description. So as you're writing the description, at the end of it, hashtag the different topics you want that to bubble up for. If you go over 60, YouTube will ignore all of them. They say that's too much, you don't get to play it all. So they'll ignore all of it. And the other thing I would say about your YouTube channel is that if you create different playlists, going back again to your persona and the voice and your presentation, you can actually create videos with different voices, with different visual impact, and put them on those different playlists because they'll all appeal to different audiences. So really take advantage of that property. For most businesses, I would say between LinkedIn and YouTube, if you put all your eggs in those two baskets, you're doing pretty darn well. They play well together, they complement each other, and they both have terrific reach capability on their own. And they have so many different little verticals within them that you can take advantage of, different tools that you're going to be way ahead of the game. And our last slide, I know it's so sad. I'm sorry, it's our last slide. Just a few resources and links for you guys. There's something called AppSumo. that is a marketplace for services and software, greatly discounted. So if you're looking for CRM, you're looking for viral marketing, you're looking for even video editing, anything that you can think of, it's a great marketplace for that. And again, massively discounted over what the public gets. So great opportunity. This LinkedIn networking tool that I have featured here, it's something called the Wallaxy. It's something I use. So by automating some of the LinkedIn activities, it's a way of again, you're not paying more money, right? Wallaxy is like $39 a month, and you can, if you put something up on LinkedIn, you can use that to create a list of prospects up to 1,000 people to invite to read that article, and that costs you nothing. You can actually set up journeys that says anybody who checks out my profile, I want to send them a in message, thank them for it, and ask them to connect. It'll actually pull their email address out of their profile, and you can send an email. So some automation tools like that, once you set up those journeys and those kind of interactions, you can set them and forget them, and it's going to kind of keep prospecting and growing your network on LinkedIn. And then I just kind of listed some things that are 101, Google Ads, Analytics, and Search Console. Could you theoretically pay attention to things like Microsoft? Yes, you could, but if you start with the Google properties, it's going to cover you, and usually the same rules that apply to Google, the others leverage as well. So you're covering yourself as far as indexing and proper SEO techniques and things like that. And then the next two are on my own website. I actually have a tool and resource library where I kind of link out to various handy online tools or software pieces. And then this brainstorming list, it's something that's so many years ago, what I found is that when you sit down, you got a new initiative, a new company, or you have a new product or an announcement, we get kind of stuck thinking about the same thing, right? Okay, we got a new product, let's put a tweet out, let's put a LinkedIn post and drive people to it. This is a massive list. I want to say I think I have a couple of hundred things on it. And it's anything from digital out of home to yard signs to Spotify advertising, over the top, like Hulu and Peacock and stuff like that. So this list is just for brainstorm, right? You can sit down with it. You want to figure out a new way to get the word out. Look through it and see, how would I apply that? How would I use that tool? And then there's a service called If This Then That, and it's a nice way of connecting different things. So say you do a video on YouTube and you want to automatically have it post over to your LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook through that service, If This Then That, which is a free service. You just connect all these things and you set up rules. So it's a nice way of kind of automating a lot of activity that alleviates some heavy lifting once you're out there doing things. And that, kids, is that, right? Nick, thank you for the questions. And I would love, if anybody else has anything else, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and we can chat. So thank you very much for listening and paying attention. And
yeah, any questions in the group?
Oh, I had a question. In your experience, Bill, thanks for all that. It's really illuminating. And I'm wondering for the startups that you've worked with, since it's almost like it's the whole universe here to know about.
The whole universe.
I'm wondering, do you find that many startups just like completely outsource this, or they hire a 20-something part-time person to just like own this whole part of things, or like in terms of approaches and what has worked and best practices? Just wonder if you could comment on that in your experience.
Yeah, great question. And I'll also, Nick, you can chime in on this as well, since you've got a broader spectrum on this. So Kevin, I would say that for the most part, half of it goes unaddressed. Like I said, I worked with one startup a year ago. Brilliant technology they were creating, and they had been in business for 3 years, had a website, and because of the way that they built their website, they were getting about 11 to 15 visits a month on it, which after 3 years, for most any website, if it's B2B or B2C, you should be looking at hundreds or thousands of organic visits a month, not 10 to 15, right? So it just goes unaddressed, some of it. For the ones who do it well, I do think a lot of times they outsource a lot of the stuff, because to your point, it is a big universe, right? And each one of these different things has its own, they have their own disciplines. So you'll find somebody, you work with somebody who just does pay-per-click advertising, right? You'll do people who just interpret Google Analytics, because there's so much information in there, right? They're going to help you determine what's going on and help you point you in the right direction about how to respond to that story. And SEO is a game unto itself, right? And generally speaking, because you get it with paid stuff, you get immediate reaction to that, and you can track all that, and it's kind of like day trading, right? I put an ad up, now I got traffic, I can see it. People get addicted to that, so the organic piece of it tends to fall to the wayside, which to me is tragic, right? Because the two should work hand in hand. While you're building your organic, to supplement that, you can bid on the keywords that you want to be found for while you're not being found organically, and you're developing that channel for yourself. So usually I would say it's outsourced. And then it comes down to what's the quality of that outsourcing. There's been a lot of people I know who said, I got this, my high school nephew built my website, right? Which can be done, but can it be done well? Is the question, right? And it just depends on resource and time and how much you want to put into it. But great question, Nick.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I mean, when folks are staying lean and mean, in the early days, you usually can hire fractional folks. So Fiverr is a great place to look, Fiverr. Upwork is another place that you can go to go find people, and you can kind of assemble this group of, kind of low cost freelancers maybe that do that. And I think, most folks in the early days can do it if they're not a marketing or, and that kind of scale is like, in the early days, outsource it, and then you can bring it internal as it goes more. Or if you're, again, kind of what I said during my product development, product manager thing, folks wear many hats, and, if you want to bring it in and do it yourself, that's another way to kind of do it. But I see, outsourcing is not, for marketing, that's nothing that's too crazy.
Yeah.
That's pretty standard.
Yep. Anybody else? Question?
Yeah.
No?
Jennifer?
I had a question. One of the things that we've been grappling with is, as a nonprofit, we have our mission work, and then we have a store called Kitchens for Good Shop, and now we're starting our alternative staffing enterprise. And how do we structure the marketing? Like right now, if you do a search for Kitchens for Good, the store comes up first. And we've kind of have been going back and forth of like, do these different initiatives need separate, like
a separate home, if you will, or a separate website?
Yeah, like, I mean, so that it's like they're differentiated.
Yep.
And so that our mission work isn't being eclipsed by our resale store, or and we're, any thoughts?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And in that instance, if they are dramatically different, then I would say a nice approach to that would be to have one kind of master site, if you will, or even just a landing page, a single page that is, this is our company overall, our business overall, and then it links to maybe two distinct sites, right? that way you're building a strong organic footprint for both of them, and and even more important, a strong user experience for both. So if I go to one, I get it. If I go to the other one, I get it. And then that middle one that joins the two of them can be kind of overarching, right? And you can present your whole mission statement and everything that you're about, and then link out. In a sense, what you're almost doing is creating that backlink environment all by yourself. That's very small, but you're actually executing that. So in the long run, if they're disparate like that, it's nice to separate them and join them in the middle by kind of an overall umbrella website. Does that make sense? Good.
It does. Thank you.
But certainly. And they don't have to be particularly involved. It doesn't have to be, you know, excessively in depth. But I think if they are distinct enough, then they deserve their own home. Yeah.
Hi, Bill. I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. This was really insightful. Thank you for your time and all the information.
Absolutely.
So I just have a question. As you're trying to like build your own like company persona, is there a way to measure how your customers actually perceive you? Like, you know, how they describe you, how is aside, I mean, I don't know, I'm not, you know, don't know much about Google Analytics, but can you know, assess that impression that you're leaving on your customers or who you're trying to target?
So what you're wondering about, they would call that a sentiment, right? So you're kind of creating, you want to understand the sentiment around your customers and the people who see you, right? And actually come to visit you. There are different tools for measuring some of that. There's a wonderful Ukrainian company called Plurdy, and you install that on your site, and they actually will give you incredibly granular information about each visitor. It records it, so you can watch the journey in a video, and you can see where people move around and how they move through pages. And they also will give you a net promoter score. So as people move through your site, it'll show like where their mouse stops, if they highlight different text, and through their algorithm, they kind of give you an assessment of you know, are people enjoying it? Are they not enjoying it? There's other things you can do. That same tool actually has like an exit survey, so you can just ask people, or a little sentiment, right? So it's a little row of sad face to smiley face, and people just can provide that feedback on their way out. So there are ways of doing that. You can extrapolate with Google Analytics by seeing the source of traffic, and then kind of there are different KPIs, right? So whatever your KPI is, and they vary for different people, but some common ones are, you know, time on page. Do they spend more than 30 seconds on a given page? Page depth, right? Do they go to 4 or 5, 6 different pages on your site? Do they scroll far? Do they watch an entire video on a page? Biggest things are things like, do they submit a form to contact you? You know, stuff like that. And you can actually measure all those things against where that traffic came from and slice it up that way. So if you have different personas, different types of messaging, through all that kind of analytic data, you can see what the reaction is. Right?
Thank you.
Certainly. And I know it's, sometimes I hate talking about this stuff because it's so complex. But generally speaking, that's the idea of it.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Sure. Great question. Good.
Awesome. Anything else from the group? If you need anything, feel free to, you know, shout us out on, you know, Slack, or, you know, hit us up on email. Happy to route the questions there. Bill, thank you so much for the presentation. I'll go ahead and stop recording here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Yeah, really great stuff. I thought it was super informative, and you even, I do, Tom, my brain was even spinning on stuff. I like the hack of the tweet your article, or tweet your link that you want to, you know, be page ranked, and I'm going to go one step further and start posting in forums, and then create a whole, you know,
There you go.
mess of links, I guess. But very cool stuff there, Bill. Thank you. Any last thoughts or comments before we peel out of here?
Not for me, no, nothing. I'm good.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, everybody. It's great seeing everyone this week. Thank you so much. And as always, let me know if you need anything. We're here to help.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Really appreciate it. Thank you.